Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, October 1st, 2024 Select Board meeting of Rockland, Massachusetts. It is 7 o'clock. Please be advised that this open meeting is being broadcast live and recorded for playback by WRPS at youtube.com/WRPS Rockland. Please go to WRPSRockland.com for further information. Please also be advised that this open meeting law gives the chair of a public body discretion to decide if public comment will be permitted, but the law does not require that a public body allow public comment or public participation during its meetings. Chief Zioli, could you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Community announcements. Chief Zioli, I believe we have a very special introduction. If you could please come forward.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hello, Officer Schneebel.
How are you?
And who do we have here?
So we're here tonight, and first of all, thanks for having us tonight. I'm joined here by our school resource officer, Ethan Schnabel, and a new addition to our department, our comfort dog, Kinley. Kinley comes to us as part of a program, a comfort dog program spearheaded by the Plymouth County District Attorney's Office. That program is looking to establish comfort dogs in more than 20, and they actually have 20 communities that partake in the program. Before I do talk a little bit about it, I just want to recognize Officer Schnabel for all the hard work that he's done with this program. It's a major commitment, and he does an amazing job working with the students every day in the schools and helping provide support for the many challenges they face. I'm going to let Officer Schnabel say a few words about the program, but I did want to say that this program certainly enhances our mission at the Rockland Police Department, which really is to bolster partnerships with key stakeholders in our community, such as the DA's office and also the Rockland Public Schools. I think this program is going to go a long way in breaking down some of the barriers and bridging the gap between law enforcement and the community that we serve. We want our officers to be approachable. We want to spark conversations. We want to be there to support. So I think this program is going to go a long way there. So we're really excited about it. So I'm going to turn it over to Ethan to say a few words. And
Do I put my face in here?
You're good. You're good. Yeah.
All right. Good. So Kinley's a 5-month-old black lab. We got her from Chico Kennels in Raynham, who some people might recognize the name. She was a former gym teacher here in Rockland. So she will start training with me. She has no official training yet. We'll start our training actually next week. So she'll get at least 80 hours initial training, and then we'll do in-service where we go at least 8 hours a month. She is still a puppy. She's got a lot of energy. Everybody loves a puppy, so it's been really good when I take her out. But she still has a little bit of work she needs to do, but she's doing okay considering. So I apologize for lack of eye contact. So if you guys have any questions about the dog or anything like that, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about the program?
So as the chief mentioned, this is funded through again with the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department. It's called the Plymouth County Comfort Dogs. So she's primarily for school resource officers, community relations officers, community resource officers. She'll be with me all the time. So when I'm working, she's with me all the time at home too. But she'll be in my office. I'll have a crate in the office. We just outfitted the cruiser with a heat sensor for the dog as well as a cage for her. So she'll be attached to my hip, and short of any major incidents happening where I need to kind of put her away or give her some time to herself to calm down and relax. We just played some fetch in the courtyard over at the high school for the last 30 minutes, so it's time to calm her down. But it basically will help. We'll work in conjunction with the school adjustment counselors, school psychologists, and staff. The few times that I've had her in the school, just to kind of get her on, kids love her. She's very well received. I was slightly skeptical about the efficient or how efficient the program would be until I know some communities that had comfort dogs come after major traumas. One being Norwell, the other one being Woodland Hanson. My daughter's a student, so that kind of sold it for me as to how effective the dogs are in helping kind of comfort students who've been through Centralia.
Yeah, well, I also applaud the police department, but also the school department, because it seems like Rockland is ahead of the curve in many ways for the school department. So I'm really excited about this program too. That's
And like you
That's
said,
really cool.
so the district attorney's office does fund the program.
Yep.
We're also going to have a presence of Comfort Dogs at the Fall Fest, the Oktoberfest. So we'll have a number of Comfort Dogs throughout the communities, probably have 8 or 9 of them there, and we'll be set up in front of Doughboy. So if anybody wants to stop down and say hello, we'll be there to present and talk to anybody who's interested. So we're excited about it.
She'll be there for a little bit, we'll see how long she can hang.
Yeah.
It might be her first attempt at some major public activities, but we'll give it a shot.
Well, congratulations and welcome. This is very exciting.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you.
And thank you for coming in and introducing us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks, Chief.
And next, we have the Town Clerk's Office early voting, October 19th through November 1st.
I'll speak to that. Thanks, Tiffany. And coming after the Comfort Dog, that's a hard act to follow. What an adorable dog. Oh, man.
He's staring you down, though.
I know, yeah, that was a look of
Does he
love,
know?
right?
Does he know?
Yeah. So on behalf of the town clerk, Liza Landy, I wanted to let the public know we'll have early voting from October 19th through November 1st, as required by state law. On Saturday, the 19th, the first day, that'll be 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then the following Monday through Friday will be 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. On Saturday, the 26th, 9 to 5. And then the remainder of the days, Monday through Friday, will be 8:30 to 4:30. And all the voting will be here in Town Hall, right in this room. Any questions on that, people can go to the town clerk's office. And then lastly, I didn't put it on the agenda, but just a shout out that we do have our fall festival this Friday, 1 to 5 p.m. On Union Street, and Jean Blaney and Olivia are here, and probably maybe others too from our recreation department. I want to thank them for all their work putting it together, but wonderful event this Saturday, 1 to 5 p.m. on Union Street. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Next, we have minutes from September 17th, 2024.
Motion to approve?
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? That's unanimous. Next, we have new business, special town meeting. We have the overview of school department budget increase with Superintendent Dr. Alan Cron and Assistant Superintendent Jane Hackett. Hello.
For having us.
Thank you.
Schools are open. So as you know, the state came through with some additional funding, and as we had agreed during the budget process, additional funds would be redirected to the school department, so we appreciate everyone following through on that. $192,621 has come through. If you look at the slide, you'll see 96,311 and 96,310 down below. So we're using this money to decrease our use of one-time money and revolving funds. So we are not adding anything back in, we're just decreasing the amount of money that we're using from one-time money. If you look below, you'll see our school committee approved salary number at $26,591,858. That includes all layoffs and bumping that took place at the end of last year due to our budget reductions, our budget cutbacks. And our first payroll is complete, so our numbers are pretty solid at this point. Specialized transportation, which I'll get into, there's one more slide, but specialized transportation costs have come down a little bit, and I want to thank Noelle Novio in our office. We sent much of our work out to bid, and that saved us quite a bit of money, so thank you to Noelle for that. And expenses, there has been quite a bit of bus inflation. The middle school, high school, for those of you who have been around for a while, it's hard to believe, but we're actually starting to have to replace some things on that building. It's not new anymore. We're hitting, I think, year 11 now with the middle school, high school complex. And then you'll notice our subline is holding fairly steady. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything, Jane, about that.
Just two quick things. Also included in the expense is the unemployment costs for our reductions for this year. And also, with the subs and the salary, for us is very similar somewhat to police and fire overtime. the fewer bodies we have in the building, when there is someone who's absent, we actually do have to bring in a sub because we don't have extra paras, et cetera, that we can redirect or reassign to cover. So our sub line has gone up over the last 3 years. We also did have somewhat of an extraordinary year last year with maternities in the building as well. So we're hoping to hold that line steady, but that's something that we really closely monitor. You can see we actually reduced it a bit from last year to accommodate, to recognize the maternities that we had last year. So
If we go to the next slide. So the main point I'm trying to make with this slide is just to show where our costs are increasing and where we're holding steady. Our salary number over the past 2 years has increased by 2.5%, 650,324. Our specialized out-of-district tuition, transportation, and out-of-district tuition has increased by 2.2 million in that same time. And so I just wanted to point that out. I want to say, in summary, thank you for being such great partners. We worked through a very difficult budget year last year. The schools are open. The morale is incredible. We toured the high school today. It's a very, very, very special place. When you walk the halls, the doors are open, the kids are engaged. It's very well organized and just very, very pleased with the energy in all of the buildings. We are struggling. We are down staff. Our custodial staff is struggling. We are missing bodies here and there, but overall, we're off to a terrific start. I encourage any and all of you at any time you want to see the Phelps if you haven't visited, or just want to check out the Early Childhood Center to see how we're organized down there and what we're doing. I want you to be proud of your school district. I hope you are. And I invite you all to come in and take a look at what we're doing at any time. And I do actually have a vision of one of those fancy buses, and we're going to all load on there, and I'm going to take you down to Eston, give you a tour of the Early Childhood Center so you can see. It used to have kindergarten through 4th grade, right, in that building, and now it's just they're they're little, they're 3, 4, and 5, and so you see all these little people walking around and all these adults, and it's the cutest thing. But the new playground is up, and just a very exciting start to the school year. I don't know if you want to add anything, Jane.
no, just we very much recognize that we received a budget increase last year, but because of these costs that are here, even though we did have the budget increase, we still were forced to reduce personnel, which was difficult, but it's just been an absolutely fabulous start to the school year, and the enthusiasm is just palpable from Eston to the high school.
Yeah, we have a new principal at the middle school, Rich McAllister, and Cheryl Shipper took over at the high school. Again, they're doing a terrific job. First payroll's through, and we're starting to get a sense of where we are financially for the year, and so we're off to a good start. I don't know if anyone had any questions.
So obviously, and I don't want to rain on all the positivity. Everything sounds like it's going great
Well,
so far.
Might as well make lemonade.
Obviously, it was an extremely difficult year for you guys for budgeting purposes through no fault of your own. The state drastically overstated what they projected revenues were going to be. And it's very early at this point, but do we have any idea where those revenue projections were, where they are now for FY26, if this could be something that we might be repeating, or has the state seemed to have learned a lesson as it comes to the school?
I'm just going to go back to the
I don't know if
slide
it's up
here.
there. I got a little bit of a glare, so I can't
We
quite.
got our first indicator with circuit breaker.
Mm-hmm.
We just received our circuit breaker reimbursement request, and although they are allowed to reimburse us for transportation costs up to 75%, and last year they reimbursed us at 57%, this year they're only reimbursing us at 44%. So that was our first indicator from a funding level. However, on the positive side, today's October 1st, a big day in the school district. It's when we count all our bodies and send our numbers up, and our enrollment is up. So that is a very positive fact, we missed foundation budget last year by 67,000, and if we had gotten, which was approximately 6 kiddos, or if they had done the inflation factor correctly, or if they had done
No,
inflation
you're
beyond
right.
1.
If they had done it correctly, you're right.
If they-
But that
if
was
they-
gonna be my next
it was
question, too.
a combination
I'm
of
glad you said that,
inflation
yeah.
factor and enrollment are the two, the driving factors of the actual Chapter 70. Our enrollment's up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very positive indicator, and a lot of hard work by the secretaries in the buildings to get all that paperwork, tied up and done correctly, and all of our children coded correctly, because how they're coded impacts the funding that we receive. So from our input to the state, we have a positive outlook going into them plugging data in.
It's always how it
As-
comes back, though. Yeah.
Their revenues and what they do with it, but they chose not to fund something they could have funded at a significantly higher rate than they're
Yeah. The
funding it.
circuit breaker percentage is concerning, and I just think the overall economy is concerning. So I'm very thinking very conservatively at this time. I'm not expecting anything phenomenal coming out of the state, but our numbers are up, and if we can get up into foundation aid budget, that makes a tremendous difference for us. It would take a lot of pressure off the whole town.
Right, of all the
So
numbers
we're very
on that,
hopeful.
all the numbers on that chart that I'm most concerned about is the circuit breaker for what I'm looking to utilize this year to fund it, because that would leave us virtually no carryover into the next year to apply towards next year, and they like you to keep a one-year balance in your circuit breaker account. And this year, we were not able to carry as much as we would have liked to, and next year, it's looking like we're not going to be able to carry as much into FY26. But that's my most concerning number on that chart.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
No, I just want to thank you guys. Like I said, through no fault of your own, you guys are handled a difficult situation. I think you guys have done a great job, and the fact that the morale and positivity coming out of the school department today is what it is a tribute to the leadership that's in the school. And anything that you need from this board or the corner office over here, you guys know we have a great relationship now, and we look
do.
forward to
We
always working with
appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah, we really do.
We appreciate it very much. We enjoy very much working with Courtney and Doug
In
on a
Scott,
regular, and Scott on a very regular basis.
he's the money man.
Yeah,
Jay knows what to say.
yeah,
She knows who to flatter. Yeah.
yeah. But mainly Doug and Courtney.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Wish
you.
a
Thanks,
wonderful
guys.
Thank
school
you.
year.
Thanks, so. Thank you.
Right, next we have the overview of warrant articles.
Thank you, Tiffany. Let me just get to that spot. Here we go. So included in your packet is my latest draft, and I just want to stress this is my draft alone. I have not sent this to town council yet, but I think it's in pretty good shape. So there's not that many, there's only 11 articles. I'd just like to go through each of them briefly to make sure there's no questions or changes. So Article 1 is what we just talked about. That's the increase to the FY25 increase to the school department budget by $192,000. Article 2 is correcting a typo in the FY25 budget. And actually, I just noticed a typo in Article 1 that should say FY25. All right. Article 2 is correcting a typo in one salary line item that was $2,371 off, so we're correcting that. And please feel free to stop me at any time if you have any questions. Article 3 is the first of a couple of CPA, Community Preservation Act articles. So the first one is appropriating $10,728 to preserve and restore and digitize historic documents at the GAR Hall. Article 4 is appropriating $17,600 from the Community Preservation Act Fund for Phase 3 improvements to the Tramp House, which is located next to the Little League fields. Article 5 is appropriating $60,000 from the Community Preservation Act Fund for historic headstone preservation at the Old Town Cemetery at 0 Liberty Street, which is near the Mount Pleasant Cemetery that we recently acquired. Article 6 is appropriating Community Preservation Act funds to supplement prior funding we had for the park that's in the process of being constructed where the old Donuts was on the corner of Union and Water Streets. Now it's a dental office. We have a number of different names for that park, for that area. There's some butterfly benches that we've had for a number of years now that were created by local artists, and so it's kind of commonly being referred to as a butterfly park, so we'll have to figure out a name that's going to stick. But this will appropriate $75,000, and it'll be a fully ADA compliant park, and it's a pretty high profile intersection, so I think that'll be really good to finish that off right. Article 7 is appropriating $100,000 from the Water Department's Capital Stabilization Fund for emergency repairs to their generator. And Crystal Cameron, their superintendent, is on the agenda tonight, so she can talk more about that if you have any questions. Article 8 is increasing 2 revolving fund limits for the sewer department. One is for remediation fees, increasing their spending limit to $500,000, and the next one is for their I&I fees, inflow and infiltration, also up to $500,000, mainly because the prior limits that we had they're always kind of arbitrary. We just estimate a high amount that we think will be sufficient, but because they've been doing more work, they were worried about bumping up against that limit. So this would increase those. Article 9 would vote to approve an amendment or revising our regional agreement with the South Shore Tech Regional Vocational Technical School. I've already mentioned this several times in the past, how this will help us and will help reduce our share of any potential debt if it does get approved in the future as enrollment percentages change and as our enrollment percentage goes down and new towns like Marshfield go up. This will help better align our share of the debt. If you'll notice in the wording of the article, it talks about voting to approve the document that's on file with the town clerk's office, because it's a long technical document with a lot of red lines. That document is already on file with the clerk's office. Anybody that they're interested can view it there. We'll also put it on the website as well. But again, that conceptually what I just explained are what those changes are. Article 10 is our first appropriation of opioid settlement funds. It's a very small appropriation. It's only $1,000. This is to cover the town's cost at the police department to pay the dues for Plymouth County outreach. And again, it is a very small amount. My intent here was to show that all of our opioid funds should go for substance abuse, opioid-related purposes. So I just kind of wanted to get voters used to the fact that, we're going to be coming back and doing this type of thing. Courtney's working on this quite a bit right now, and our hope is that we'll have enough information in time before you set the annual town meeting warrant for next May that we'll have kind of something more robust to recommend going forward, because we have, probably at least $350,000 collected so far, and this is recurring revenue that's going to increase. So Courtney's looking at some innovative things. This is just a little baby step in that direction. And then Article 11 relates to repurposing a free cash appropriation we had at our last annual town meeting. Originally, that was appropriated specifically for relocating the rec department to privately owned rental space. And now, as we've previously talked about, we're no longer pursuing that opportunity. We're going to be relocating to the Eston School. Once we went back and looked at the warrant article, it was specific to private lease space. So this would just repurpose it so that we could use it in conjunction with the school department for our efforts to relocate it to the Eston School. So that's all I have on the warrant. That's my draft. I'm happy to answer any questions. And either way, I guess when we're done with that, I would recommend you take a vote to close the warrant.
All right, any questions or comments from the board?
No. I'll make a motion to close the warrant.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? And
Yep.
that's unanimous. Next, we have Rockland Holiday Magic. Do I have anyone here? Hello and welcome. Thank you very much for being here. For the purposes of the meeting, if you could please introduce yourself to everyone as well.
I'm Kim Nelson.
I'm Celine Furlong.
And I'm Laurie Mariano.
Wonderful.
And the rest of our committee is not here, but we do have quite a few members. As I look around the room, I see a lot of friends of ours, Rockland Garden Center and the police department and the school department and the rec department. And so for those of you who don't know who we are continuing in the footsteps of my mother, who started this many, many years ago. And we're getting ready to kick off our 24 season. I'll give you a little bit of our history. She recognized a need. She was the school nurse in the high school for many years, recognized a need, and the community responded to that need. We support all the children in Rockland that live in Rockland. And it's newborns through 16-year-olds. We allow people to approach us for 3 years in a row, and then hopefully within that time they're back on their feet. And that allows us to serve many more families in the community. We network with the school nurses who generally have a better idea of who the needy families in town are. The churches help us, St. Vincent de Paul's. Head Start helps us as well by identifying families. And then we approach the family. It's very confidential. Their families are given numbers and we never know their names. So the people that come to us are generally very needy. We actually have to approach some people to ask them if they need help because there are so many proud people. But this community has responded incredibly to our group. And every year we are grateful beyond belief for the generosity that people show us. We use social media. We're just getting into that now to reach out to people. The rec department has offered to help set us up with on their platform, so that will be great as far as getting the word out. Since COVID, we changed up our process a little bit. We now hand out gift cards. We used to purchase items, so we do Target gift cards, Walmart gift cards, and Stop and Shop. So when the community wants to know how they can help, the best way to help us is to give us either donate a gift card to one of those 3 places or donate money. And we rely 100% on donations, and we're all a volunteer group. So no money goes for anything other than helping the people that need it the most. So last year we were able to help, 75 families and 155 kids. And this year we are going to be distributing donation boxes around town. So we'll have one here at the town hall, we'll have one at my office, which is Phelps Insurance, and then we'll have one at the McKinley School. And the things we're looking for are children's books, toiletries, hats and mittens, and this year we're opening it up to socks. So those boxes will be distributed on the 18th, right?
So October 18th is going to start here for early voting. You've been fantastic allowing us to do that, and thank you so much. At elections, there will be tables at elections. We cannot have boxes. That's a safety thing. So we will have tables at elections, and members of our committee are going to come take the things out as the day goes on if they get overwhelmed. But any donation anybody wants to make there would be great. The other donations, I think November we're going to start.
Okay.
The other,
All right.
the other boxes.
The applications are due back from the people that need the help by November 18th.
Yes.
Yes.
And we're planning to distribute on December 4th, which is much
Yes.
earlier than a lot of people think. So if people do want to help, we just request that the donation be made earlier rather than later if they want it to be used for this year.
year.
Otherwise, we'll
But I
hold
take
on
money
to
all
it.
year long.
Yeah.
I'd be more than happy to take a donation.
But people are always surprised, I think, that we wrap up as quickly as we do, but we want to give people a chance to get out there and do the shopping and the wrapping and that kind of thing. So, again, we thank the community. Everybody is just wonderful, and I grew up here, and it's always been this way. And it's just something that is so near to all of our hearts, and the way that the people here respond is just second to none. So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that overview. I remember when I moved here in 2018, and one of my neighbors invited me to go to the community center, and it was the day that your organization was actually just conducting a major wrap-a-thon. And I met so many wonderful people, and so I was able to participate but witness at the time the magic. And from there, not only did I see your group in action, but then I was able to see, because not only are you involved with this, but you're just involved in so many wonderful things. So I can't thank you enough for that.
Well, it's a pleasure. It's the people that work with me on the committee are fantastic, and it's nice to see the generations move on, and we're hoping to get some younger blood, so anybody in here that's interested. But thank you very much for giving us a chance to explain who we are and say hi.
I had a question. Do you guys have a QR code to donate that you can put up on?
We have a QR code for Venmo. We do.
Okay,
And
can you talk to WRPS and get it up on the
Of course we
marketing
can.
thing?
That'd be
And
great.
also maybe at the town hall here.
So when we put our box out, we have a Holiday Magic sign
Yep.
that has the QR code on it.
Yep,
So that'll be there.
okay. So some people don't leave their houses, but if they see it on their television.
Yes.
Yeah.
they can
And this
do
year,
it.
we have brochures actually that have been donated by Printing Unlimited.
Oh, nice,
And they
yeah.
also have the QR code, so.
Yeah, it's fabulous what you guys do, so I
Thank you.
applaud you.
For a small town, I think we make a really big
Huge
difference.
impact.
Yep,
We typically serve over 200 children. Last year's number was pretty low for us. Yeah.
And we don't know what it will be this year.
Yeah.
It could be more.
Right.
So, I'm thrilled by, the success that you guys have had in your organization. Anytime somebody comes to me and asks me what organization they should give to, I suggest you guys, or if we're doing some kind of a donation or fundraiser at the center.
Yeah.
I tell people about Rockland Holiday Magic and what it does and the impact you guys have for these families in the community, and within seconds, instantly, people are willing to give.
Yeah.
Last year with the birdhouses, I
Yeah.
didn't see that being as big as it was, and it was unbelievable, and just how willing people were to give the money because they knew it was going to you guys to
Yes.
provide for young kids. It was awesome. So let me know if there's anything you guys need. I have some ideas.
P.O. Box 50, in case anybody wants to mail me a check.
Is that your address, Celine?
That's the address for Rockland Holiday Magic.
I got you. Not your personal
I just
address.
happen to be the treasurer.
Perfect, okay.
So thank you,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Players Sports Bar and Grill, change of hours, early opening on Sunday, October 20th, 24 at 9 a.m.
I don't see Jackie here, but it's pretty self-explanatory. I think it's probably a Patriots game
Patriots
starting
playing
early
in
that
London.
day. Yeah, so that's kind of a one-off. You previously approved their permanent change in hours, and that's working its way through the ABCC, so I'd recommend approval.
Make a motion.
Do I have a second?
second.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
That is unanimous. All right, next we have Rockland Golf Course, permanent change of hours request for 7 days a week at 7 a.m. opening, and I see we have, now could you please introduce yourselves for the purpose of the meeting?
Yep, Dave Cantellis, I'm the general manager.
Thank you, Dave, and so can you explain a little bit of what you're looking to accomplish?
Sure. So I've been with the golf course for 6 months, and this is my third time in front of you guys. So we've been having some early events that are looking to have the beverage cart and the bar open. We have a lot of events booked for next year already. We have a function hall that we have a caterer that rents out, and they have a lot of bereavements that just kind of pop up last minute, and they're looking for mimosas, and we can't serve until 10, so we're just looking to, solve the issue so I don't have to come here, every day and do this. You guys are great, by the way, but, but yeah, and we're not going to be staffing the bar at 7 a.m. every day. It's only going to be staffed for events. Other than that, we're going to stick to the 10 a.m. opening. It would just be for special events.
So on an as-need basis? Right?
Yes.
Great, any questions or concerns?
Motion to approve.
Great, and can we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
And this goes to a different board or something? Is this how this
Yeah,
works?
it'll go to
after?
the state after that, so Sue Ide and my office can walk you through.
Yeah, I saw the process last time I was here.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Dave.
Next, we have Fall Festival one-day liquor license, October 5th, 2024, with the rain date of October 6th, 2024, 1 to 5, Buzzmead Meadery in Abington Depot. Do we have anyone here from Fall Festival? Hello, Jean.
Hello, Jean Blaney, Recreation Director. Yep, we're back. So we're super excited to have these folks along with us at the Fall Festival this year. I think Buzz Meadery might have been there last year, but yeah, so just a couple of different folks, and things are wrapping up and we're ready to roll. So anyone have any questions about anything at all? Just want to remind folks that the street is going to close at noontime. The police will be starting to close it down, and so if there are cars on the street, they're going to ask you to remove your car just so that we have it nice and clear. And then they'll be opening it up promptly at 5 o'clock, so we do have a procedure for that as well. Yeah, just a couple of reminders. And if anybody has any questions, certainly they can call the office. I'm not going to guarantee that you're going to get through, but the phone's been quite busy. But hopefully it'll quiet down pretty soon.
Oh, I have just a comment. Congratulations on getting Bluey.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Bluey. Yes, that is, that's new.
That's going to be a draw.
Yes, we have Bluey for about an hour and a half. I think it's from 2 to 3:30, I believe.
It's a
I
big
think
deal.
Bluey likes to party, though. I think maybe he'll come to the
Maybe.
beer tent.
Maybe. You never know.
I get nothing.
Bluey might be 16 or so.
Never mind.
We're looking forward to a great day. May I entertain a motion to approve Fall Festival one-day liquor licenses 10/5 and with a rain date 10/6, 1 to 5, Buzz Meadery and Abington Depot.
Motion to approve.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Excellent.
You're
Thank
all
you so
set.
much.
Thank you. We're looking forward to a great day.
Yep.
Next, we have Abington and Rockland Joint Waterworks update with the superintendent, Crystal Cameron. Hello, Crystal.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
I don't have Bluey, so I don't really have anything that cool to talk about. I just figured I'd ask before I start. Do you guys have any questions about the generator request that I have for fall town meeting? And just bear with me, I am getting sick, so sorry about that. Okay, I just figured I'd ask right off the bat. So I'm here to update everybody on all things water. First, I'll just start with the small things, and then we'll move up to PFAS, which I'm sure everybody's most interested in. We are in the midst of our fall flushing program, which I'm sure most people are aware of right by now. But I don't know if everybody, and I was actually talking to Courtney about this today, I don't know if people are aware that I text out the locations of where we are flushing in town. So if you sign up for the Rockland Alert Me notifications on the website, excuse me, you can choose an email or a text, and you'll get those notifications as to where we are in town. So you'll know not to do laundry and whatnot. Flushing is something that most water departments do throughout the country. Everyone should actually do it, and it's a way that we clean the water mains. So I'm not sure if people are questioning why we do that, but it's actually kind of like a preventative maintenance type situation. But it does create dirty water, and that's normal, but it's our way of preventing it from happening throughout the year and being, gross in your house. But we do recommend not doing laundry and not using hot water if they're in your area. And then if you come home and you're at work and you realize, oh no, they were in my area, just flush your hot water. Don't flush your hot water. Use your cold water, flush it throughout your house, and then just, business as usual. Just avoid using hot water. Okay, so we also did, I'd like to thank some of the residents in Rockland for participating in our lead and copper sampling program. We have a certain amount of people in town that, and it's based on the age of your home, so it's not, everybody cannot participate in this program, but we've asked us 30 people in Rockland to participate, and most people do. And we just take a sample of their water and they give it to us, and it's something that we're required to do for the state. So I'd like to thank everybody for doing that. It helps the water department in a great deal with compliance. So now the big thing is the PFAS project. I wanted to update everybody about. We are really pushing along. I'm really excited to let everybody know that we have the GAC the GAC media vessels are in place already. So we have 3 vessels in place for the GAC, and then 6 vessels for the iron resin exchange, which I know there's like a new federal, I'm not sure if you're actually aware of this, but there's a new federal limit that was just dropped to 4. Well, it hasn't been 100% established yet, but most likely will. So there was a lot of question on whether or not our GAC media would actually meet the criteria that we would need. And the ion resin exchange is actually going to do that for us. So we were ready for this to happen. It was kind of a little talk, behind the scenes. So we were aware that this is coming. So the 6 ion resin exchange vessels should do that for us with no problem. There will be a yearly cost for that, just so that everybody is aware. We do need to change this media out. It becomes like hazardous waste after a certain amount of time. It becomes exhausted. So the reason why we have so many vessels is so that we don't have to shut down. We don't have downtime where we have to take the treatment plant offline. And it allows us to still feed water into the system, let us do our maintenance to the system, and then, we're back up and running, full-fledged. So we're very happy about everything that's going on with the project right now. The building is actually coming up and around the vessels. It's pretty amazing. If you have a chance to get down there, I'd love to walk you around the site. It's kind of a disaster right now, but such is construction, it is what it is. But we're trucking along. So it's actually pretty amazing. And there are updates on the website. Our website's arjww.org, and you can go to the Your Water tab, and then underneath that, there's the PFAS 6 option that you can get. And right there, it gives you everything. There's a timeline for the project, the cost, and how we're paying for it with the funding, and then also a ton of pictures. I put usually, a handful of pictures up there almost every other week. So it's pretty neat to see if you have time to take a look.
And only because you speak pretty fast, could you just repeat your website?
Sure.
And then also how somebody might sign up for those texts as well?
Sure. It's arjww.org.
Thank you.
And then the PFAS tab, you go to Your Water, and then underneath that would be PFAS 6, and then you go there. And then the I think it's actually for everybody, right, Doug?
Yeah,
the
I
Notify
can help
Me
you out with that. So on the
alerts?
town, exactly, like Notify Me on the town website, there's a button, and you can select which department or board or committee you want to get updates from. So some people might want every single Board of Selectmen, Select Board agenda and minutes, or every notification. I'd highly encourage people, especially Water Department, Sewer Department, Board of Health, those kinds of
Yeah, I
announcements
get
are really,
police and
really
fire,
important.
things like
Yeah.
that. I mean, I'm not from Rockland, but I still want to know what's going on in town, so those alerts are great. You can get them emailed or text to you, so it's great.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you expect after the process is done, I know we had spoken before, and you expect it in the summer of '25 to be all set for the PFAS? And
I would say, yep.
and will the PFAS be at zero at that point? Do you expect it?
So we have a similar treatment plant in Abington that's already up and running.
Right.
And right when, so the way that the plant is designed is you have your GAC media, and it's in these vessels, and the water flows through the media. And as the media grabs onto this PFAS, the PFAS is actually designed to stick to that media, which is why, as I mentioned earlier, it becomes hazardous waste, if you will. You can't just reuse the media right off the bat. So there's a special way of getting rid of it, which is why I call it hazardous waste. So as the media grabs onto PFAS, it becomes exhausted. And so the way that we test for the PFAS is there's little ports on the side of each vessel. And so we test, and as the residuals of PFAS go up, we know that it's actually making its way down through the media. And once it hits a certain amount at the media, at the lowest point, we know we need to shut that vessel down and take the media out. So in the beginning, I'll say yes, most likely it will be zero, but it will not be zero throughout the entire process. So, but there is a certain level that we do not let it get past. So usually it's around 10, no more than 15, usually parts per trillion.
Okay.
And that's right now,
Yep.
but when the limit becomes whatever it is with the federal government, then we will adhere to that.
Okay, and the resin filters catch it on the other end?
Yes.
Okay, and to dispose of these filters is the cost associated with the loan you got?
It is not.
It's not, okay.
It is not, nope.
All right,
So that
so-
will be in either articles or my operating budget.
Okay.
So right now, with Myers Ave in Abington, what we have to do is, we have a company come in, they actually use this big vacuum system, they suck the media out, and it's actually kind of a punch in the gut, but they can take the media and they can fabricate it somehow and sell it back to you. At a cost, and you can put it back in your vessel. We don't necessarily do that, but that's how they can actually do it. It's kind of insane to me, but there is a way for them to clean off the media and reuse it. So I guess that's good, where you're not, constantly wasting this GAC media, but it is kind of crazy the amount of money that we spend on the media, how much it is.
Yeah, they
really
were coming in at $35,000 a few years ago. Has it gone up?
for the media itself.
For each filter?
For each vessel?
Yeah.
Each vessel is much more than that. It's,
Right.
the vessel itself is, I want to say, about $200,000 for the actual vessel itself. We
oh.
don't have to take the vessel,
I
we
was
take
talking
what's
about
inside.
the filters, yeah. I
Yeah,
was talking
so
about filters.
usually I appropriate about $30,000 to $40,000 per vessel.
Okay.
So we have 3 GAC vessels, and then the ion exchange, I have no idea right now at this moment how much it will be.
Yeah.
But that'll be less frequent. The GAC is really what takes kind of the brunt of the work in the beginning.
Right.
So the ion exchange is more
Yeah, so
of
it's 2 to
a
3 times
polisher.
a year that they need to be changed out?
That will, the Myers Ave one is a much more of a low flow plant. It's once a year right now. With Hingham Street Water Treatment Plant in Rockland, the flow is much higher, but we have more vessels, so it's going to kind of be kind of an adventure in the
Yes.
beginning to figure out how often we need to do this, but I'm going to guess about 1 to 2 times a year.
Well, I'd say it's worth it for peace of mind.
Yeah, oh,
For the
absolutely, yeah.
residents, it's like they're
If anything, we actually test more frequently than we're supposed to, than we're regulated to, just to be safe. We don't want any, we call it breakthrough, so it's almost kind of like your pool filter. Once you need to backwash your filter, it's the same idea, but we don't backwash these ones.
Yeah.
So if you don't, take care of them, it'll start breaking through.
Yep. And I know that, this is my last question, the entire South Shore is looking into hooking into the MWRA. And how would this affect the system?
How would it?
Yeah, I mean, like if the base hooks into it, and it'll be two separate systems.
If the base hooks into the MWRA, it wouldn't affect us. If we are doing a study right now to see what the availability is for us to hook into MWRA, it wouldn't be the entire system. It would be more, at this point right now, we're looking at more of like a way to kind of subsidize what we need. If there's extra, if we want to do some sort of a larger development, or it's really kind of like we're exploring our options right now, but it wouldn't be my best guess wouldn't be that we would allow MWRA water to take over all of Abington and Rockland. It wouldn't be something that I don't think would be what we're looking to do.
It would just be additional capacity.
Yeah. Or an emergency type, an interconnection, and we have that. And then, there's been talk of wheeling water, and that's more of like mixing water with, one source and another. There's a lot of complications that come along with that. I don't know that I'm a fan of that. You have to be really careful with water quality, different types, and the adverse effects of each one, on the other. So it's more, I would say, to either for emergency or, to kind of give us more supply if needed for a certain area that we would gate off, and that's it.
Yep, and when people hear MWRA, they freak out at like the
price.
Initiation fee to
Yes.
join. But Doug, it's true that they're waiving the fee?
Yeah, the effort that Crystal's, working on with us and our regional partners is trying to time it just right so we make it in before their deadline where they will waive the fees, which would normally be like $26 million or something significant like that. So we're trying to avoid that.
It's still extremely costly, though, on the other end of it. There's a lot more fees that go along with it, and then the cost of the water alone is pretty expensive, too, just for the average user, from what I understand. But their water quality is fantastic, and they don't have to worry about PFAS. So I guess it's kind of the catch-22 to that. So, but my biggest, one of the things that keeps me up at night is having an emergency with water and not having the supply that we need. So having that backup would be priceless, really. So it's always something to think about.
Thanks for all your effort.
Oh, absolutely.
With this.
Absolutely, and this has been very helpful. One question, with all of the rain this summer, I'm just curious, how is the overall water supply?
We're doing pretty well, actually, knock on wood. It's actually, I believe, the first time in a really long time that we haven't had water use restrictions throughout the summer with zero use for outdoor use. So we went through the whole summer without that, which I thought was pretty fantastic for people. I know that's a complaint. So, the board has done really well with making sure they keep up on looking at the current situation with the reservoirs and making sure that we adjust that when necessary and when we're able to. I think that's important.
Great.
So with every adjustment, though, we do need to notify the DEP, so that's also something else to keep in mind. But we do have new signs and all kinds of new things to let everybody know what we're doing, so our new website and all that good stuff, so.
Well, thank you. Any other questions or concerns? Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next, we have discussion of public forum, comment on future board agendas. And I know that we also have Attorney John Clifford joining us as well.
Tiffany, would you like me, while John's stepping up, just to explain what's in the packet?
That'd be great, thank you.
So there was two different pieces of information that I put in your packets because there was a recent court decision from the town of Southborough, where there was a lawsuit concerning the select board's, trying to think of the right word, the select board kind of putting controls over the type of speech that people had, trying to regulate hate speech or other types of, speech that was really inappropriate by anyone's standards. Those folks, went to court and went all the way through, and the decision ultimately, as you read in the material, was that select boards cannot control speech. You're only allowed to control things like the duration and whether you choose to allow it or not. So I highlighted some different excerpts from a KP Law summary of that case, and then I also gave you some information from an MMA webinar specifically on this court case, and it included a link to a video where some attorneys on behalf of the MMA explain the practical implications of that case on public forum. And so that's what's in your packet, and I'll defer to you and town council on the rest.
Thank you. I actually wanted to start with Select Board Member Ellard, as you had requested us have this discussion tonight. So.
Yeah, well, I guess my main hope of at least talking about this is public interest in what goes on in town is at an incredible low level. If we get a 10% voter turnout, we pat ourselves on the back. This past election, we had literally 0 contested races, and we had one where we didn't even have one person step up to even try to run. I think there's a perception out there among some that this board doesn't want to hear new ideas, that, that they, meaning us, already have it all figured out, new ideas that aren't welcome, that type of thing. Whether that's true or not, that's, up for some debate. But I do know other towns do this. I thought that webinar was really interesting. That I thought Southborough handled it incredibly poorly, to be honest. I don't know, probably the public hasn't watched it, so they don't know what we're talking about. But one thing I took away from that video was that even the towns that, at least with Sandwich, I don't think they're looking to do away with it. That's the impression I got from Bud, who is the town manager down there. And like Mansfield, they offer it twice a meeting. I don't know, it's just something I thought we should talk about. I know that it's wrought with, it could definitely go sideways, but I thought we should at least throw it out there and see if that is something we want to consider bringing back.
Thank you. And do we have other questions or comments from the board at this point? Well, Attorney Clifford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have worked in towns that have had public comment or open forum components of their meeting at the select board meetings. So I've seen it in action. From a legal perspective, it's a fundamental principle of the open meeting law that topics that you discuss are going to be put on an agenda, typically with 48 hours, at least 48 hours notice, so that the public knows what you're going to talk about. And that's true of all the boards and committees in town as well. Like most other boards and committees, you prepare for meetings by reviewing the material that's relevant to a specific topic. You may invite interested parties or people that can bring specific knowledge to the meeting where appropriate. The concept of open forum is completely contrary to those things. It's especially contrary to the basic principle of the open meeting law, that we tell people what we're going to discuss and give them the opportunity to attend, watch on TV, or whatever. And I understand that the Attorney General has taken, I guess I'll call it, somewhat of a neutral view of the impact of this on the open meeting law, but the way this plays out on the ground at your meetings is the person comes in, you have no idea what the person is going to speak when they sit at this chair and start talking. You don't know what they're going to talk about. You are constrained, you board members are constrained from talking about it. All right. Doug mentioned the Southborough decision. For the public certainly isn't going to be aware of the Southborough decision, what the particulars are, but basically it wouldn't involve the person coming into the select board meeting and being verbally abusive, insulting, however you want to characterize the discussion. But basically, in the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court, they applied the 16th and 19th Amendments of the state constitution, which are roughly analogous to the federal constitution. But they basically said that you have no ability to control or restrict comment based on the content of the person's speech. So the person could come to one of your meetings, they could say that they want to talk about the conflict in Gaza. I'm fairly certain from a legal perspective there's not much you folks can do about that, but certainly controversial, could lead to a lot of other things. They could come in and want to talk about whether dogs and cats are being eaten in Springfield, Ohio. They could talk about anything. But you don't know what they're going to talk about, and again, you're constrained from participating in it. Taking it back to more practical considerations, if someone comes in with a specific issue, a question on town government, they went to the Veterans Affairs Office and they felt like that they didn't get served, or there was an issue with it, well, unless the veterans agent knew about this, he or she's not going to be there to address the question. And again, it's just, we're throwing something out there and providing no real ability to address the question. So, in the worst case scenario, towns like Canton, it's gotten completely out of control. And again, once you put that in there, you have no ability to control, restrict what people say. I did look at that webinar also, John. I did think one of the things that was interesting, and I've seen it in a number of places, where they put our police department in the position of dragging people out. I will tell you as your attorney, never, ever, ever do that. Adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes. Don't put your police department, don't drag people out. It's not a good look, and it pretty much guarantees the lawyers get more work one way or the other. So I've seen it in action in many places. It's pretty benign. People come in and they make announcements. Similar to what some of the people that came tonight on your agenda did, talking about community events or whatever. But I see no reason why they couldn't give the chair, the town administrator, the opportunity to put things on the agenda so that we're prepared to talk about them and you can actually engage in a discussion.
Thank you.
So if someone wanted to come in here and complain about the job that we're doing, would you recommend that they come and ask me to put it on the agenda, and we would add that as an agenda item for someone to come in and talk about some of our decisions about, I don't know, whatever, any decision that we have? Would that be how that would work if we don't have a public forum opportunity?
I mean, I think, I'm assuming it would be relating to your performance in a certain subject
Yes.
area.
Yeah.
We want to talk about how the selectmen are managing the budget. All right, well, now you put that on the agenda, you may have your finance people here, whatever. So, I don't, my objections to this are not based on, that any of you folks or your counterparts in other communities are too thin-skinned to take the criticism. There are many fora for people to express their dissatisfaction, and they do on social media. That's fine. But I think for the purposes of meetings, you want to be able to give information back in meetings. You want the meetings to be productive. And again, I see very little positive as compared to a lot of potential negatives.
So how would you compare like public comments to like our ability as selectmen to do our selectmen's comments? I find it maybe a little bit of a contradiction that we're allowed the pleasure or the opportunity to talk about whatever we want, sometimes including being critical of other boards and committees, to do that here, but we don't offer that same ability to the public. So I guess that's something I'm personally maybe struggling with a little bit, so.
Well, we're also elected officials, and
No, yeah.
so are those people, so they waive that right to privacy to that to that right to have to be informed about it.
Right.
If somebody has concern about something that we did, a decision that we made as a board or an individual here, and they're on a committee where they're elected, they have the same ability to say what they want to say about our performance. As elected officials, we don't have that right to that privacy. We're not private citizens. So from a private citizen standpoint, if John came up and he doesn't like his neighbor and he wants to come up and start complaining about his neighbor to us because it's up to the Board of Selectmen to resolve neighbor disputes, John's neighbor doesn't know. Now, John just blasted his neighbor. We have no idea. He's not here to defend himself. And all we're going to end up doing is infuriating the resident that's sitting there because we can't answer them. And then they look at us as if we're more arrogant than they think we are. That how dare we think we're better than them, that we can't even answer their question. I was a chair for almost 6 years on this board, and I said it from day one. I said it at many meetings, that if a resident ever wants to be on an agenda, I would not hesitate. Come see me. I have an open door policy. Doug has an open door policy. At one point, I gave my phone number out at a meeting. That wasn't great, but I don't advise that, Tiffany. But we're all open to hearing what the residents have to say. But there's nothing more frustrating than when you go to a meeting, you're looking for answers, and yet you're stonewalled by the board. And they don't know why they're being stonewalled, because they don't know open meeting law. They don't know that we can't answer them. They just know, wait, I sat here for 2 hours and now I got to come back and do this again in another couple of weeks for you guys to give me an answer. It's extremely frustrating. And I watched it happen firsthand, and I've talked to a lot of selectmen about this over the years from different communities. There's a gentleman in one of our neighboring communities. There was an incident that was brought up. Somebody complained about the town administrator in that town. He complained about the interactions that the town administrator had with one of the employees that happened to be this person's spouse. And they started yelling at the selectman, and the selectman kept saying, it's not on the agenda, I can't talk about it. It's not on the agenda, I can't talk about it. The gentleman approached the board. The chairman said, I cannot talk about it, it's not on the agenda. And he was vilified on social media. He did not get reelected because of it. He was referred to as a bully for all eternity because he was doing his job, and he was representing, protecting the open meeting law because it wasn't there. That gentleman had every opportunity to approach the chair prior to that, but he wanted to come in and have kind of that shock factor. Now some of you guys were in town for this. None of you were on the board, but what you end up seeing, we had a scandal that occurred 7 years ago, was it? It's been a while. Wow, 6 years ago now. And what you end up seeing that happens, at that time, it became a 3-person board. If we had open forum at that time, then the selectmen are put in a position where you cannot comment on, rumors and innuendo, and that's what is being brought to us. The amount of questions that I faced from people not on camera that I ran into in the community, if they were to ask us, as a town, we could have been liable for anything that was said. We wound up getting sued by the past employee. And if we had open forum at that time, who's to say that one of us wouldn't have taken the bait and have said what we were thinking? You and I talked during that time. You knew the rumors and the conjecture that was out there. It was bananas. It was nuts, some of the stuff that I was hearing. But put that in our meeting. I always kind of say that I prefer to control the chaos, right? And keep it out. Rockland had open forum, and there's a reason it was taken away. It was taken away because the selectmen's meetings were becoming very contentious, and they couldn't answer the questions that the residents had, and it was really off-putting to the residents, and they didn't look up to the selectmen at that point because they felt as though the selectmen didn't care enough about them because they couldn't answer their questions. I just think, we've had the open door policy. People don't take advantage of it. I think if you have open forum, it becomes a mechanism for people to complain about rumors. And it's not fact. And they already have that mechanism by social media. And I know that, at my place of business, I have residents come in all the time asking me to correct something or find out the real truth behind something. I just think, I understand, and I don't want anybody to think that I don't want to hear what the residents have to say. I had 5 cars in front of my business the other day. 4 of them were there to talk to me about town stuff. One of them bought something. It was amazing. But I have no issues listening to what residents have to say, but there's other forums in which they can do it without potentially taking away from the important things that we're trying to accomplish. And if it's so important, then go to the chair, go to Doug, get it on the agenda so that we can talk intelligently and have a good discussion about it. I mean, I get it, and I think it made sense for you to bring it up, because there has been a lot of people talking about it, but it's not, it's the perception that they have that, you know, we don't want to hear them. That couldn't be further from the truth. We just can't help them in that moment, and there's nothing worse than telling somebody, sorry, come back in a couple of weeks, we'll try to figure it out for you. They want answers in that moment. They don't want to wait, you know?
Yeah, no, I understand that, and maybe that would be part of an education process that we would announce it at the beginning. Hey, you know what, we can't, answer anything, just so you know. And
Which
so-
I agree with,
Yeah.
but you can say it 1,000 times.
It's still not gonna matter.
And it's still not gonna
Yeah,
hit
no,
home.
it's
a good bring up, John. It is. It's something that we revisit every now and then. You and I had talked about it when you first got elected, and I told you my thoughts were on it. And I think every one of the members on the board up here at some point when they got on, and I was the chair at the time, I talked to each one of you, and I think each one of you asked me the question, how come we don't have open forum? I told you what my thoughts were. And I think we have ways that we can reach the residents, and residents have ways that they can reach us. If you put the open forum there, I mean, we just saw it a couple of weeks ago. One of the residents got really upset in here, and I just hate to see our meetings turn into a circus when we have so many things going on that we're trying to accomplish.
Right, and I remember, I actually brought the same thing up
Yeah.
to Mike when I first.
It's the first question every new selectman asks me.
First question,
Every
because
single time.
the whole goal of our being involved is to engage.
Mhm.
But my greatest concern with that as well is that with that public forum, we're not engaging, we're being spoken at, and we're not being spoken to. And so that we can't, not being able to reply, not being able to address what people would have come into, only makes it inefficient and ineffective. So please, we welcome, you can always call town hall, you can always leave a message, and of course, please bring it to our attention. We're happy to put it on the agenda, just like tonight. Your voice will be heard. It's just to do so in an effective manner that's good for all of us.
I just want to say that if you speak to us one-on-one, like oftentimes Doug's like, oh, tell the resident to come in and we'll talk to him about this and there was one resident a couple years ago that was very concerned about shingle mill and just, was freaking out about it. And I said, well, come in, we'll sit down with the town manager and we'll talk about it and you'll learn facts, as much as we could speak about it. And she's like, okay, and we made an appointment, and then she called back like the day before and said, I talked to people in the community and I'm not going to talk to you guys. So I just want to say, we do want to engage, and I engage every day with people, and we have a lot more in common than we do our differences. I hear all the time we want a community where families can grow and thrive, where people can easily access the amenities in town by walking or a short drive, where seniors can age comfortably in their homes. So there's a lot of things we hear about and I talk about, and I actually help people. I helped a woman kind of remediate and go to the right people to get raw sewage out of her yard from her neighbor. So things like that. I think sitting down outside of the meeting and talking, you get a longer time, a chunk of time where you can find out answers to all your questions, and it's a more in-depth conversation. So, and also I wouldn't guess you wouldn't put something on the agenda. I don't know. But
Well, I did have it a few times. There were a couple residents, and a lot of times when Doug and I would go to build the agenda, some of the stuff that I would ask to be put on there was something that was brought to me by a resident.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, would you want to be on the agenda? Do you want to present? They're like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm talking to you about it now. I said, but okay, we'll put it on the agenda. And there was a time that we had an issue at the former Kelleher Oil site because the owner, the person that had purchased it prior to COVID, hadn't really cleaned it up yet. And we put them on the agenda because the residents came forward. The residents showed up. They wanted to be here for that incident. for that discussion. The owner came in and we gave him a timeline. We said, when we have it ready, he said he'll have it by April. He hit that benchmark, and now it was an eyesore in the town, and now it's great. But those residents were willing to come forward and be part of the agenda, and I think that's a good thing if they're on the agenda. I just hate the one-way discussion. You're right, Tiffany. You're being talked at, and it's not their intent to talk at us. They want solutions to their problems, and we can't give it to them in that moment because we didn't announce that we were going to be talking about this. Now, and it is, obviously, anything that is on the agenda, it's the discretion of the chair as to who speaks to that subject. And, Tiffany has allowed a couple people to speak to a couple different topics during her time. So, I mean, that's always something as well. And I think sometimes as people reach out and communicate with us, we have an idea of how they're going to come at it. And I just think it's such a risk because there's so much misinformation that's out there. And I mean, we see it every week about the situation down at the hotel, some of the stuff that's being posted about what's going on down there. And I talked to both chiefs in town, and that's not the case, but I saw it on the internet. It must be true, So I would just hate to see our meetings become a sideshow, and not to say that anything against the residents, because I think the residents generally have these concerns, but we've seen it at times at town meeting where somebody comes out with something that's outlandish, that was a rumor, and it takes away from the business of the day, That's my only thoughts.
And also, John, I mean, today I talked to Maureen Doherty, who is on the Mansfield Select Board, just to get her thoughts on public comments, because you have them in that town. And she said there's pros and cons, and she likes the fact that people come up, say their piece and engage, but they get really angry for that exact reason, that we can't talk about something that wasn't on the agenda. So, and she said in those cases, it's kind of a waste of time for both parties. So.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to quickly address something
Yes,
Ms. Allen
please.
brought up. I think you raised an excellent question about selectmen's comments. I think the board has the ability to adopt guidelines of your own comments. I think and I think you have the ability to, I'm not sure exactly precisely how enforceable they are. It's 5 individuals, but I think if you wanted to discuss, let's set some standards, some guidelines for our own comments, I think that's a perfectly appropriate thing to do.
Right, I mean, we kind of did that a little bit in our code of conduct. We kind of already put some dampers on, or some guardrails on what we can and can't do. Sure. So I don't know if we need to extend that to, I find it a bit of a contradiction, or I'm being a hypocrite, that I get to get up here and say whatever I want about anything, but, John Doe wanted to come up and do the same thing, and come up here and say some, critical things about us, that, he doesn't get that opportunity, but I can. I mean, I get that I'm elected, but it's one of the few perks of being a select board.
Well, I guess it's just the distinction, though, right? Yeah. If it was a private citizen, obviously, nobody's going to say anything about a performance issue or anything like that. But I think part of our role as being elected officials is to inform the residents of things that might be going on. And if there is, I've had people come to me from other boards with concerns about how their board's operating, and I say, we have no jurisdiction over your board. Fix it internally. You got to figure it out. And, there's been times where I've thought about, using the old, what's the phrase? Bully pulpit, right? And I never have. I've never gone that route. I felt it was more, a better way to have the conversation with somebody. Maybe it's a phone call, or meet in person for a cup of coffee and work out your differences that way, and explain what the concerns that have been brought to us, and work together in that sense. But I mean, it does happen, and if there's times that somebody sees that there might be a problem and the residents don't know it, and in this case, I've kind of distanced myself from that committee and department, but if it's one of those things that we were going to ask them to be on an agenda, if they didn't have to show up, then they don't have to show up, and then you never talk about it, and then it's never something. And if it was something, and make sure everybody knows, I am not saying this is the case here, but we had a department many years ago that was taking money, and well, I wasn't even on the board, but as a town, how do you find out about it? If nobody talks about it, if there's no mechanism to say this is going on and correct that narrative. So if that person didn't want to show up for the meeting, then you can't talk about it. You know, and I get it. I agree with you. It's one of the things that's really tough about being elected is anybody can say whatever the heck they want to say about us at any time they want. We waive that. We can get angry about it, but we're elected. We're a
I'm
public
okay
figure.
with having people be critical of
Absolutely.
anything that I do, and I would be perfectly okay if someone came up and spent their 3 minutes or whatever you allocate telling me what a lousy job I'm doing.
I'm
If
okay
that's
with
what
that as well, if that's the case.
Yeah, but.
I just think it'd be frustrating for the resident that
Yeah.
we couldn't respond
No,
and say we
I
agree
get it.
or anything like
I mean,
that.
the
or
open meeting
anything,
law
you know?
does handcuff us
Yeah, it does.
to some degree.
Right.
But I don't know, it's just, like I said, I'm glad we talked about it.
Yeah, it's a good bring up.
Yeah.
It's a good bring up.
Well, I also wanted to say, as elected officials, it's the residents' obligation as a citizen to hold our feet to the fire. And I'm also a resident, and I call the State House, I call the, Washington, and they, I hold their feet to the fire. So, and it's responsible, I think, much of the time.
Great.
And it's not necessarily getting angry, but it's having a discussion about things that you see as changeable or coming to a new understanding about something. So that's it.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, I guess with that concludes the discussion on public forum this evening. Do we have any other new business not reasonably anticipated?
I do not.
Old business. Vote to place debt exclusion question on the 1/25/2025 special election ballot for South Shore Regional Vocational Technical School proposed building project.
Thanks, Tiffany. So I know I've talked about this a lot. I am requesting tonight that you all take a vote. Very quick recap, the South Shore Tech, their school committee has called for a special election on January 25th. Each town clerk will be running that concurrently at the same time in their respective towns. The vote will be tabulated as a whole. And as we've also talked about before, everybody in Rockland could theoretically vote no, but if everybody else in every other town voted yes, its majority wins. There's no weighted votes or anything like that. As we've also talked about before, the size and scale of this project could potentially roughly equate to a project of similar size as our fire station building project, which recently failed in Rockland because of the cost. So the cost is a significant concern. I do also want to state, as it relates to the cost, because I talked to South Shore Tech Superintendent Tom Hickey earlier, and he really wanted me to reiterate that they are doing their best to structure any potential project, if it passes, to not have any significant financial hits on towns in the first couple years, FY '26, '27, maybe interest only in the beginning, and then it would ramp up later. So we appreciate that, but they're doing that to make sure that we have time in the event that this project passes to put the financing in place, because this is a ballot only. Majority wins, and the South Shore Tech ballot question has no financing attached to it. It's just, do you want a new school, yes or no? So I've been working with all the other towns in our district to see how they're approaching this, because my recommendation to you tonight is that we hold a Rockland special election at the same date, time, and location as the South Shore Tech, and have a debt exclusion, Prop 2.5 debt exclusion question specifically for this South Shore Tech project. It has to be two separate ballots because they're technically two different elections, but it'll be same time, same place, same location. People would vote literally in the same room. And my logic behind that, and I've spoken to John Clifford about this, and he agrees, it helps inform residents so they understand that if you want to vote yes for this project, that's great, but we need to be able to fund it. Because if this project were to pass and we don't have a debt exclusion to fund it, we will be looking at massive, massive budget cuts throughout every single department in town. It would be financially devastating. So as I've been working with the other towns to see what they're all doing, there's a clear pattern. Cohasset has very few students. They're a relatively affluent community, so they have no plans to ask for a debt exclusion if it were to pass, because they wouldn't need to. Hanson is currently looking at doing what I'm proposing, which is having a debt exclusion on January 25th. All the other towns, Hanover, Situate, Norwell, Whitman, and Abington, they're all, as of today at least, taking the approach of let's wait and see what happens in January. If it fails, then it's dead. If it passes, then they're going to ask voters in the spring for a debt exclusion. My concern with that, again, is that might be too late because the horse is out of the barn, so to speak. And I want to be clear, I'm not trying in any way to manipulate anything or discourage people from passing this. My perspective and my role is I would love for this new facility to be built because I think they do need one. But if it gets passed, the funding has to be passed with it. We can't absorb the debt service on this through budget reductions. So my point is this is related. It should all be decided and voted by voters at the same time so they have all the information. I don't know, John, if you want to add anything, but that's my pitch for, and I guess the vote would be to put a Prop 2.5 debt exclusion question for the South Shore Tech project at the January 25th election. And John would help word it properly per state law. We don't have any discretion in how it's worded. I don't know, John, do you have any other clarifications?
I mean, Doug and I had a number of conversations as soon as this project, really hit our radar. And I think one of the things that residents of Rockland have to be aware of is, it's not a burden that will be shared across the district equally. I think the formula is based on, and there's a proposed modification to the formula, but it's based on how many children we send to that school. And we have an agreement with the district school, so if Cohasset only has been sending 3 students a year for the past several years, their portion would be based on how many they sent. However, the agreement that we have with the school district allows them to send a higher number. And when the new school was built, the way this all shakes out, Rockland's been sending more students than our minimum allotment because there's openings. But when a new school is built, we could find ourselves paying for that higher share based on the extra students, but being limited to only sending the smaller number. So there's some real concerns about the impact of this going forward. I think Doug is asking you to approve this to do it exactly the right way. We need to make sure everybody in the district should understand what the price tag on this is going to be. And it's a January election, which is has its own special concerns. I'm going to guess that, after November's election, people are going to have a lot of election fatigue in general, not want to hear anything about elections for a while. So a low turnout could really be an issue.
And maybe one last thing I just want to say too is, and I know we've talked about it before, but I want to reiterate it. This particular mechanism that the South Shore Tech School District is approaching to get this project approved does not require a town meeting vote by communities to either approve the project conceptually or to approve the funding. And I had a hard time getting through this because it's kind of contrary to all my prior experience with fire stations and libraries and schools and things like that, which require a town meeting vote and a ballot vote. So this particular way this is being done, there won't be a town meeting vote unless you wanted to have just some sort of non-binding referendum. So I just wanted people to understand, because they might be thinking, oh, building project, that exclusion, we'll just wait for town meeting, but there will not be a town meeting vote required. It's only the ballot.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So a debt exclusion won't have a number on it, correct?
The question will not, that's right, because we don't know exactly what the...
So this idea that doing this will let people know how expensive this is, the debt exclusion won't accomplish that. Other than we'll have to communicate that this could be on the scale of a fire station. But when they go with the ballot, is this going to be, to vote if you want to have a debt exclusion for this project. So I'm not sure I'm seeing the connection between.
Yep, I'll explain that. I get, it's a good question.
Yep.
It's a very good question, and my answer back to that would be, the question will be worded to explain that we are exceeding Proposition 2.5 to raise taxes to pay for a project. That will be worded in the language of Prop 2.5 exclusion. So I think you're right, there won't be a specific dollar amount, but it's as opposed to just the South Shore Tech question, which says, do you want a school, yes or no? Then there's another question saying, do you want to raise your taxes to pay for that school? That's the conceptual difference, and there'll have to be different information that's provided factually outside of the ballot piece of paper that says, we estimate this project will cost roughly $33 million for the town of Rockland, and your average household tax increase will be $300 a year, whatever the numbers might be.
And we're going to have to work on the precise language of the ballot question and the explanation. And the explanation can certainly include the financial projections that we have in hand.
Okay, well that.
So, but.
Which
so
was
we can-
39 million when they made their presentation for Rockland. The portion was, I think it was 39 million. So,
I'm sorry.
I think it was 39 million for the,
So getting
For the
to
guesstimate.
the January being an incredibly low turnout election, my concern is that the debt exclusion being on there will draw out the people who want to vote no. They'll be more motivated to show up. And I think that you get a low turnout election with a debt exclusion, I think we're looking at it failing. And I don't know what the mechanism would be for if it fails, because the last thing I want is for us to kind of give the appearance that we're kind of shopping for an outcome we like. Because if it's a 3% voter turnout and it wins by a vote, people are going to be ticked off because they didn't know about it, yada, yada, yada. If it fails by a vote, or they're coming back and asking again, it seems like we're opening ourselves up to a no-win situation here that I'm thinking most of the other towns are kind of taking the wait and see. I'm definitely in the camp of let's wait and see if it even becomes necessary. And especially if they're looking at potentially delaying the hit to us. We may not need to ask for it in April. We may be able to wait a year to ask for it. So I'm not sure I'm following or agreeing with this need to lock it in the same time of the vote, this hypothetical debt exclusion, because people are going to show up to the polls thinking, if I vote no on the debt exclusion, I'm going to drive a second stake through this thing's heart, which isn't the case. So I'm just, like I said, I don't want this to be put up there just destined to fail, which is, I think it will fail if we put the two of them together.
I think is that okay if I respond to
Please.
that? I think that's a completely valid perspective. This is a policy decision, so there's no like right or wrong answer, right? So that's valid, but I'm just looking at it in the opposite, which is my fear is if we don't do this, someone's going to come and say, oh yeah, absolutely, I'd love to have a new tech school, that, great, yes. And then a year later or later, we say, well, you voted yes, so now you have to raise your taxes. And they say, well, why didn't you tell me that when I was voting on the school? I wish I had all the information at the time I could. So I think you could really look at it either way.
and to John's point about low turnout, it's January 25th is a Saturday, and oftentimes there's football playoffs then too.
Don't have to worry
so.
about the Patriots this year with
Well.
that. So.
And then I
This is
guess
looking pretty.
one question, we would only have one shot at that debt exclusion election,
No, I
correct?
think if it
Or-
failed, John can correct me, but I believe you can ask again at another special election or annual election later. You can always ask later. So that was another reason why I thought there'd be no harm in it.
Because the big thing is just to really thoroughly educate all on the implications if the VOTEC initiative was passed and the debt exclusion was not, what it would do to, our community. And so that's the fear involved. So I understand that and then the importance placed on it. So if we were able to address it again, then perhaps that having them both on the same day could be effective, because either way it's gonna take an educational campaign anyways, because this is new turf for so many, but it could be cataclysmic if that wasn't approved and the school does move forward. So we do have to communicate that.
Right, I mean, I know we get more than one bite at the apple, but that first bite at the apple is the best bite at the apple. So I still think we should wait, see if we even need to try to bite the apple, just keep going with that analogy. But rather than, oh, it fails, we're going to ask again, oh, it failed, we're going to ask again, oh, it failed. People are not going to go for that. And let's wait, find out if it's necessary. Have it at a regular election when, you know, instead of having a 5% turnout in January, we'll have our normal 11% turnout. And at least we'll have more people weighing in on it. I don't know, it seems like there's a lot of risk here and not a lot of return, in my opinion, so.
And on the other hand, I rarely see Doug freak out about anything. So, just tossing that in there too.
Madam Chair, if I could raise one
Please.
other interesting point of this. Ballot questions, we cannot spend money to advocate for or against ballot questions, which is different. It's not clear to me how much, if any, information is going to be transmitted to voters in the district so that they even know that there's an election. Because you can't spend taxpayer money to advocate for a position. So it's going to be, that part of it's going to be really interesting. You could have an incredibly low turnout district-wide in a decision that has major impact on everybody's budget, you know, could be voted by less people that show up at a town meeting.
Can I make one comment to that? I haven't even had a chance to talk to John about this, but I did talk to Town Clerk Liza Landy about the January election earlier today, and one of the things we talked about is, you know, unlike the federal and state elections where we're required to do vote by mail and early voting, you know, we're allowed to opt out of that for local elections. And in talking to Liza, because of John's point that he just raised, we were thinking about not opting out for this January election so that there would be mailings sent out to everyone that, hey, there's an election in January. And so that might help to inform everybody in a neutral manner. It's just, you know, because we wouldn't normally mail something out to every, you know, registered voter. So I'm just throwing that out there as something, you know, Liza doesn't have a final recommendation yet, but that's kind of where we're leading.
So the bottom line is,
I'm sorry, sorry, Donna, I just want to finish, I didn't finish my thought. That's where we're leaning, if you were to decide to hold a Rockland special election, because if you decide not to, then obviously that point is moot, because it's not our election, it's the South Shore Tech election. Sorry, Donna.
Oh, sure, now it's gone. So, we're going to vote whether or not we want this new school. And even though we send more of the majority to this school, it's not going to count. That's not going to count in the final vote. It's going to be whoever shows up to the election in all of the towns is going to have say. So when they decide that they want a new pretty school, we're obligated for that money.
Correct.
Correct.
So my thought is that we should at least let people know at the same time that you're voting for this new school. You are going to end up having to have your taxes raised appropriately to pay for this new school. So my thought is that at least if people have all the information at the time, then they can make a decision as to, no, I don't want this new school. So even if Rockland is the only town that votes that we don't want this new part of the school, at least we've had a say. That's my thought.
Makes sense.
So with that,
What's the timeline needed for declaring? So per state law, you have to put a ballot question to the town clerk at least 35 days before the election. So that deadline is not until December 20th. But I've been talking about this for, you know, months. And so that's why my hope was the sooner you decide, either way,
we can educate people accordingly.
Yeah,
But the deadline, the absolute drop dead date is December 20th.
I guess my thought is there's been a couple interesting points that have been brought up tonight that I kind of want to dig into a little bit more. What happened, what was the method used in the North Shore for, what was it, North Shore Tech, that they just, because that was...
There was a different process, I think.
But it was a similar thing where they had...
It was Whittier, I think.
Whittier Tech, yeah, where they had...
I don't remember the details.
There were multiple communities that would decide the outcome for all. I think I just, and I apologize, I should have brought it up sooner. I'd
have to go back and refresh myself.
I mean, I think there's pros and cons to both ways, and I get John's point that having the debt exclusion question on that ballot is almost to a point, a negative endorsement to the school. But I understand Donna's point too, because we can't necessarily come out and advertise, for or against a ballot question, but everybody should have all the information available to them at that time that they're going to do it. They should know what the impact is of a yes vote or a no vote, and are you willing to have your taxes raised as a result? But, like I said, I mean, I do understand John's point here, that, I think I want to look at it a little bit. I know I know that you do your due diligence on everything, so I'm sure you
I
have.
totally respect that. You don't have to vote it tonight. That's why I put the timelines in before. My only response would just be that I don't see it as a negative endorsement of the project. It's just factual. It's just finances.
We did it
So
with the
that-
firehouse, right?
Right, but the only thing is Rockland, we need to make clear that Rockland could vote no against the school, and if the other towns vote yes, and we could vote no against the debt exclusion, but if the other towns vote yes, then we are still accountable for paying that money, and then all of a sudden, that 39 million or whatever that fund, that number is coming out of our regular budget, which would be
And the town.
enormous. Yeah, so I think that's the big thing that we have to make clear, whether or not, it's kind of like you have your opinion on the school, which could potentially be a great amenity to the region, whatnot, but at the same time, whatever happens, we would need to be able to fund it accordingly, because either way, if it passes, we're going to be held accountable for that. So I think that's the biggest thing that has to be communicated.
Right, and just to kind of piggyback on that, that's one of my concerns, is that maybe someone who goes to the poll to vote no on the school, who then will be like, well, I need to vote no on the exclusion, if we ask them in April, by then they'll go, oh, well, the school is indeed happening. Now I know I have to maybe change, even though I voted no in the school, that person is more apt to change his or her vote to a yes, now that the decision actually is not hypothetical anymore. That, okay, we're looking at this massive hit if we don't do it.
That's a
Like I said, I don't see the...
Because somebody could think they're going in for 2 no votes without
Right, they're
realizing
gonna vote no on
it's
both.
not
They're gonna-
actually...
One stake through the heart, but the second stake through the heart. That isn't, all you're doing is putting the stake through the town's heart, maybe needlessly.
Yeah,
And
you
those
cut
people
nothing
maybe
else,
would
yeah.
have and maybe they would vote differently a second time, but I just, like I said, if we vote this and it fails, to ask again 3 months later, not even 3 months later, especially with the fire station one already being on there, oof, that could turn into a really ugly day, that second Saturday in April.
And
That could-
potentially-
A lot of people could turn
yeah.
up really pissed off.
Yeah, and potentially other projects that, we have in mind or haven't even dreamt up yet. I mean, a debt exclusion of that enormity could affect a lot of future stuff. So,
So do we want to table this? Is that kind of?
Yeah, I think, I'd love to punt on this issue for tonight and just kind of circle back and take a look at it and kind of wrap my brain around it a little bit more. I mean, I've been going by this was kind of my thought process all along about doing it that way. And I hadn't really considered the fact that somebody could come in thinking, all right, I'm voting no on both, without realizing that, you know, if you don't want the school, you vote no, but you'd have to vote yes in case the school passed. You know what I mean? So it's going to be a lot of educating the residents.
Either way, you're
so-
either, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. No, you're right. I mean,
Right.
but I think it's one of those things that, one, maybe that education is kind of starting now. If we talk about it tonight, then we put it on the next agenda and talk about it again, and we keep talking about it a little bit. And I know, Doug, you've done a ton of work on this, and your mind's already there. I think I just got to get my mind there to figure out what's best. I just want to look at a couple of different cases where this has occurred. You know, obviously Whittier Tech, and then if there's any others that we can find out there, what the best solution was, and what the time of year was, and compare kind of what went on, and what if there was similar circumstances, and what the outcomes were.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know if any other towns combined the two elections. I'd be interested in seeing
Because I think it makes
how
sense.
that went. Yeah.
It does make sense, because you want to give all the information, but, I mean, it's just,
I mean, you're either
It's a lot.
educating them that this school isn't free, or you're educating them that if you vote no on this and it passes, you just put a big set of handcuffs on us going forward. So either way, we're educating voters, so.
So as we do need to, you know, create a definitive sense of direction, do we table it tonight, and then why don't we bring it up at the next
yeah,
meeting?
maybe the next one or the one after that, the first one in November, so that we can really get a good look at it, so it gives us, just about a month now to really look at that, and we can have all of our questions kind of answered in the meantime through either, you know, emailing Doug or Attorney Clifford. I think that's probably the best route we can take just at this moment, because we don't seem to really have a roadmap as to what the best direction to go here. You know, they're both good options, they both make sense, but I think I'd like to just see what the odds are of.
Yep.
And that makes perfect sense. Again, this is a policy decision. There's no
Yeah.
clear right or wrong, so whichever way you guys go is fine. Part of why I am asking kind of early is I was kind of thinking, you know, you might want to chew on it a little bit, so you absolutely have time. The last thing I'll say, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it's the one thing that for me is like the most important issue, is my fear is if we don't do this, or if you don't do this, voters will come and vote yes, and then later in the spring, we say, well, because you voted yes, you know, now you got to raise your taxes, make sure you do it. And they would say, well, why didn't you tell me that when you were giving me the other question? And I get John's point, I get your point, those are valid points, but that's the thing that I just get stuck on, and it's sort of like, there's no perfect solution, but I just wanted to say
Well, I
that's my
think as
issue,
much
but-
as we're going around in circles, I think you probably went around in circles with this yourself, and you and the
And
other
with the
members of the
other-
MMA,
right.
you guys
We've
are all
been
kind
doing
of
this, right?
circling the wagons together, and we haven't seemed to find what that right answer is yet, and I think at the end of the day, we have to just be comfortable that whichever direction we end up going is the direction that's going to be best for the residents of the town. To John's point, people only want to be informed to the amount that they want to be informed. It's up to us to educate people, but we're in a difficult spot because it's a ballot question, but it's not our ballot question. We can't say anything pro or con necessarily against it as far as advertising before it goes. So yeah, our hands are tied a little bit here, so in order, yeah, I mean, I've already gone around it a couple times, but I think I'd make a motion that we table this for a future agenda, maybe the first one in November, at the chair's discretion.
All right, and do we have a second? Second. All those in favor? Okay. Thank you. Other old business not reasonably anticipated.
I have none.
Town administrators report and correspondence.
Great, I do have a few things.
Thank you, Attorney Clifford.
And the room clears.
Yeah.
The sun just came out.
See you later, John.
Sure, it's a great one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll stick with the town clerk voting theme. I want to announce, very pleased and proud, that our town clerk, Liza Landy, passed her exam, and she is now officially a certified town clerk, certified by the state. So I want to I know Donna did that in the past. It's a big
That's awesome.
accomplishment. I want to congratulate Liza. She does a fantastic job. Next is, I wanted to give a quick update on our Union Street sign and facade grant program that Courtney and Allison have been working on. Again, this is funded from our federal non-entitlement unit ARPA funding. We received a total of 8 applications by the deadline that was last Friday.
Wow.
And the application ranged from a low of around $2,000 to a high of around $30,000 per applicant. We're guessing that we'll likely approve a total amount in the $60,000 to $75,000 range. And again, these are for streetscape facade improvements to help beautify the town and facilitate economic development. There's a review committee that includes a number of town staff as well as a number of people from the community at large, regular residents. So I want to thank Courtney and Allison for that, and we look forward to getting that implemented and seeing the actual physical results. On the county ARPA front, we have now submitted all of our applications for our full allotment, which was $3.2 million. So all the applications are in. There's only one still pending final approval, but it's at the final stage. I don't anticipate any issues. I was on a Zoom today with the county and all the other town managers in the county, and they talked, the commissioners and the county treasurer talked about how there is a potential for some additional funding if any of the other towns don't use their full allotment, then it'll kick back to everyone else. I think I mentioned this earlier. I want to stress, it is very unlikely that any town's not going to use their allotment, and even if one or two fail to use it, it'll get distributed amongst all the other towns. So in the end, it probably won't be much. But the process they've put in place is if anyone that is at their limit, which we are, and we want to get in a queue, in line for potential additional funds, we're allowed to request up to 10% of our total allocation. So that's approximately $320,000. So in talking with the town accountant, what I'm recommending we do is apply for $90,000 for the waterworks, which would basically cover the cost of the generator that's on the special town meeting warrant that they have to take out of their enterprise fund. And then the remaining $230,000 cover the additional costs for the sewer generator project, because that project is, the actual bid price came in higher than the amount that was estimated that we allocated from ARPA. And the reason why I'm recommending this is the county has essentially requested that if we're going to put in a request for this, it should really be for a very easily approvable thing like water sewer infrastructure, and especially something that's like already in the queue where we have quotes or a project that's already engaged. So I think it would very easily be approved. So pending any objections from you tonight, that's how I'd like to proceed. But again, we probably won't even get anything, but always like to cover all our bases just in case. Next, I want to just inform the public. I know you all know that we'll do our annual Fire Appreciation Day on Saturday, October 26th at 9 a.m. at the fire station headquarters, and the public is, welcome and encouraged to attend to thank our fire department and the personnel for all the work they do keeping us safe. A couple other things. Next, as you all know, Courtney and I were out of town at the International City Manager Association Conference last week. It was really interesting. I'm happy to talk to any of you individually about it. It's just really interesting. Not only the sessions and the presentations, but just getting to interact and network with other city managers from across the country, because every time I do it, it always just reminds me what an outlier we are in New England. Everywhere else in the country, it's, county government with much greater economies of scale, and you don't have all these tiny little individual fiefdoms with town meetings. I mean, it's a manager city council form of government in large counties with a lot more resources. Generally in these other places, other parts of the country, my experience has been they're not struggling with, water and sewer infrastructure constraints like we are, because it's not a little town of, 18,000 people trying to solve it. It's a huge county, with millions of people or hundreds of thousands of people at least. So that part is always interesting. But I think one of the other big things I took away from this that was really different from even just a year ago is the prevalence of artificial intelligence, AI, related topics and sessions. A couple years ago, it was never brought up in any of these conferences. Then in the last year or two, there's a little bit of that. And now at this last conference, I don't know the exact percentage, maybe 20% of all the sessions had some kind of AI theme to it, because, it is happening. It's already happening. If you go to Google something, you'll see AI results instead of the hard results. But I think it's inevitable that in every city and town, to differing degrees, it will be implemented. And just to give kind of 2 examples of the early kind of uses of it, and I know this might sound kind of dumb because people don't like it when you get a bot when you call a phone, you don't want to talk to a real person. But, whether it's on the town website or a cell phone app or even through our telephone system, they have very robust bots now where a resident 24/7, 365 can call up and get accurate information immediately and not have to wait to have a person call them back and have a conversation or a meeting. Other tools involve whether it's staff internally writing RFPs, analyzing financial data, all that kind of stuff, that can all be enhanced as well. So, it was just interesting to see. My main point is just how what was something that none of us really, at least I didn't know anything about a couple of years ago, and I'm starting to see more of it. It is exponentially increasing in this field, in this domain, and I think it's, we're looking at doing a free 30-day trial of one particular product just to dip our toes in. It won't cost us anything and see. But I just thought that was really interesting. Next, I emailed all of you just recently, but for the public's benefit, we were officially approved not only by the Attorney General's office, but specifically by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities for our MBTA community zoning that we passed at our last town meeting. So that's critical, because if that state agency doesn't approve it, we're not in compliance, and that's when we lose all of our state aid and face potential legal ramifications. So it was great the town meeting adopted that. We are now documented to be in full compliance, so that's great. 2 more quick things. One is, just this afternoon, I got a call from the MMA that they've asked me to be the single statewide municipal representative on the Cannabis Control Commission's Cannabis Advisory Board. So I thought that was interesting. I didn't seek that out, but I think it's just because of all the advocacy that we've been doing. They asked me to be that rep, so I said I'm willing to do it. To a certain extent, I've already used the expression, right, the horse is out of the barn or whatever, but we'll see, going forward as we are able to have input with all the other stakeholders. I think it's a very diverse, broad spectrum of representatives that are on this group, but there's only one municipal rep. So I'll keep you all informed about that. I think it'll be interesting. Lastly, on a bittersweet note, I want to announce that our Parks Superintendent, Peter Ewell, who it took me a while to learn that his name wasn't Peter Pak, but actually Peter Ewell, is going to be retiring, and he's going to be retiring at the end of December. So there'll be plenty of time to, say goodbye and all that kind of thing. But I'm sure we'll be talking about it a lot more because he is really an institution in town, and he has many decades of experience working in town, and he has had a big positive impact. So I want to thank him, and we'll talk more about that later. But rather than have rumors out there, I just figured I'd inform the board and the community that Peter will be retiring, and we'll wish him the best when he's gone after the end of December. That's all I have. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Doug. Select Board comments. Comments and opinions expressed by individual members do not necessarily reflect the views of the Select Board and are the opinions and comments of only the individual member. Select Board Member O'Loughlin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I got a couple things tonight. First, just a reminder, we talked about it earlier, Fall Fest, 1 to 5 on Saturday. It's one of my favorite events in town. The weather looks like it's going to be great, and it's always a good turnout. It sounds like, I've talked to the rec department a little bit on this already. It sounds like they're anticipating a huge turnout, so hopefully it'll be a good day and everybody behaves. I'm sure the chief hopes for that as well. I'll behave, I promise. Also, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, the Rockland Emergency Food Pantry has gone and made a change with their management, and the board up there has kind of changed over a little bit. And they're really getting proactive with trying to do things to increase the amount of funding that they have because they've struggled over the years, obviously. So they have on October 11th, they have a golf tournament at the Rockland Golf Course. I think it's pretty much booked up right now, but anything that anybody can do, I just want to put that as an organization, put that on people's radar. It's a great organization, and it serves a huge need in this community. They serve a ton of families, and it's really an amazing operation. And I encourage anybody to get in there and take a look around and see what they're all about. Also, over the last couple of weeks since our last meeting, I had the pleasure of attending an Open Space Committee meeting. We talked to the Open Space Committee. I relayed what occurred up here from the Board of Selectmen and what our expectations are for the Open Space Committee going forward. And I think it was received pretty well. They're working closely now with our town planner, Allison Quinn. Everybody seemed to be pretty pleased. We went around the table on a number of topics, and I haven't heard anything as far as negative feedback, and they seem to be moving forward and just kind of turning the page. So, and then lastly, I just want to wish a happy 74th birthday to my friend and our former colleague, Larry Bryan, 74 years old today. Happy birthday, Larry.
Thank you. Select Board Member Ellen.
Yeah, real quick, just want to congratulate Liza on passing any kind of state certification is difficult to do and a great accomplishment. And then Saturday, hope to see everybody there 1 to 5. Thank you.
Right, Select Board Member Shortle.
I would also like to acknowledge and congratulate Liza. That test is, I can speak from experience, that test is really tough because you need to know the Mass General laws and public records and open meeting law and election, and there are like 3 binders about this thick that you have to go through. And so for her to follow up on that, like she said she was going to, I want to congratulate her.
Wonderful. Vice Chair Childs.
Yeah, way to go, Liza. I'm reflecting what everybody else said. And I also want to remind people not to dump their leaves, especially on the rail trail. And please bag them up and you can bring them to the dump. And because the leaves can get caught in the streams and waterways and flood the rail trail and flood other yards. And it's just a considerate thing to bag your leaves up. So that's all I got.
All right, and congrats, Liza. Happy birthday, Larry. Looking forward to the Fall Fest. I mean, my comments are boring because they've all been said, but they are true. Next, okay, I'm going to make a motion, or may I entertain a motion to go into executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, for the review, approval, and potential release of the December 19th, 2023 executive session minutes, not to reconvene.
Make a motion to enter executive session, not to reconvene.
Second.
All those in favor?
You should do roll
Oh,
call.
That's right.
pardon me. Roll call vote. I was so close. Select member O'Loughlin.
Yes.
Select member Ellard.
Yes.
Select member Shortle.
Yes.
Vice Chair Childs.
Yes.
And Chair Needham, yes. Okay.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.